We're live.
We're live. Hello. Hello, Richard Bazzy.
This is the Banter.
It,
Tell
it
me.
is. It
So
is.
you're telling me, so first of all, you're like one of the most learned, great, opinionated sports writers, sports broadcasters,
Yeah.
sports personalities that
There
I
we
know.
go.
That I know.
Well, yeah, which means you must not know many. But
So I do actually I know them all.
yeah.
And more importantly, they know me. But you say there's news.
Yes, Larry Ogunjobi is a
Oh,
Steeler. What? There's so much news off of that it's interesting to me because one, does this mean the Steelers think they need to get better to stop the run and they didn't have enough? That's point one. Point two is, how do you approach Mason Rudolph and say, remember when the one guy ripped your helmet off and hit you in the face with it? The second guy who came in and pushed you down that you then wanted to fight, well, now he's on your team.
yeah. Well, I'd say he's not going to be on his team long.
Yeah.
I would say it's irrelevant because I think I just saw a bus go by, and I think Mason Rudolph was on it.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
got a bus out of town ticket, I think.
all right. To the first point, then, because this is, to me, it's fascinating. The Steelers then were an 11th hour away from going into a season and kind of finally, after Omar took the reins, said, wait a minute, we don't necessarily have enough to stop the run. We better do something here. I feel like that's what happened here. And if Kevin Colbert would have stayed in this job, I wonder if they would have made this move.
I say no. I say this is all O. That's what I say. I also say yes. They realize that they do not have it. I'm going to tell you, you know how high I am on this team. I am
Seems like
so
it.
high on this team. And honestly, I think it's a wonderful addition. I'm concerned because I don't know enough about the why he didn't pass his physical.
That's interesting. Somebody in the Bears, they were about to pay him a whole lot of money, maybe, and it's not like a physical like you and I get, and we go to the doctors. And now this involves MRIs. This involves a pretty deep dive into your medical history.
Yeah.
Maybe and it involves millions and millions of dollars. So maybe they just saw one little thing they didn't like, and he didn't pass it. And the Steelers say, well, for a reduced rate, we're willing to take a risk that won't be an issue, but it will
I'd like to see it
never.
identified, but I would like to see it identified. I
Yeah, I
really
mean,
would. Not that it matters because I love him. I love the pick, or not the pick, but I love the signing,
right.
and I really like where this team is. I like that they are able, and I said this to somebody else this morning, that they have finally been able to abandon all that Steelerism crap and look in the mirror and say, okay, we're not as good as we think we are. We will and are willing to make the changes, but those changes have to take place by looking in the mirror. So I go down the line. I say improved offensive line. I say improved running back, second year running back who's a stud, packs on the pounds, all muscle, he's ready to roll. Second year, he can do anything.
Right.
So we've got him. Receivers, see, to me, receivers, you already have the receivers.
I
But
agree.
but the thing to me really is, and here's the big question mark, because everybody keeps saying the words these guys are all suited for a Matt Kavanaugh, or not Matt Kavanaugh, but a
Matt
Matt
Canada.
Canada offense. So you keep saying that. But and by the way, Trubisky, he's the quarter. He does have that. So we have an improved quarterback. But to say they're suited for a Matt Canada offense, I don't know what that is. I say Matt Canada is the biggest question mark in this equation. The players on the field have the ability to perform if he puts them in the position to succeed. Last year, he didn't, but we keep blaming Ben Roethlisberger for that. Was Ben Roethlisberger really that bad that you call 3rd and 2 and you pass the ball 2 yards when you're 3rd and 15? Come on. Was Ben that bad? I
I think
don't
it was.
think he was.
Is it okay to blame more than one thing? And I think that's what.
Yeah, for sure. But I think I think Matt Canada is the big question mark because I'm
I
surprised we didn't fire him.
I agree. And there's other news too, and it involves Chase Claypool. Chase
Yeah.
Claypool goes on a podcast with Brandon Marshall,
Yes.
who is known to talk, and I really like Brandon. I think he's a good kid. Not
Yeah.
a kid anymore. I think
I
he's
like
a
him
good
too.
guy, and I think that he's a guy that speaks his mind, and he's a
Yeah.
guy that has been successful and didn't have a lot growing up, and I root for people like that. He's from Larmer Avenue too. I mean, he's a kid from here.
And you know what else about him? Not to interrupt you,
No,
but
go
I
ahead.
believe he was one of the first ones to speak on mental health.
He was. He
And
said,
he acknowledged the fact that he had borderline personality disorder. And, you know, that's huge, especially in today's world. But he was one of the forerunners of that. And I really respect that.
from a big position of being a player in a major league, he was. He absolutely was. So Chase Claypool goes on a podcast with him, and he says, I think, I aspire and strive. I should be one of the best 3 receivers in football. And then Brandon Marshall pushes him a little bit and said, well, what are some numbers? And he said, like 1,600 yards, and I want to score 10 touchdowns. And that's what that's what I can do. And so this is clearly a case, and I've really thought about this over the past 48 hours because it happened earlier this week. It's clearly a case of you can't win. If the guy would have come out and he would have said, you know what, they drafted 2 receivers, and I don't even know if this team wants me, then oh my gosh, he's a loser. He's got no drive. He's got no vigor. He's got no push and whatever. If he says what he says and he hasn't performed to that level, and he hasn't as of yet, then oh my gosh, this guy. I have absolutely no problem with Chase Claypool trying to talk himself into some motivation, and I loved it.
Wow. So I don't see that. Didn't his first year he had 11 touchdowns?
He did. So he has performed at that level. He just didn't do it in the recent past.
He didn't do it. Again, that does to me, it's a Ben Roethlisberger thing to me in that, but that's not a Ben Roethlisberger thing. That's a Matt Canada thing. And yes, he did on the 50-50 balls. He did lose some that he shouldn't have. But, you know, there's nuances, I guess. And it goes back to me. Oh, Chase Claypool. I think Chase Claypool is a badass. I really do. He's got the size, the speed. He's got everything. He really does. If he puts his mind to it this year, and why wouldn't he? He's a professional. I think he has just nothing but unlimited potential. Love him.
I just don't understand in this day and age there's so much, people are just so ready to criticize anybody that wants to speak positive about themselves. We tell everybody, have a positive outlook on yourself, self-reassurance, do all that. Then someone says it and they're cocky or they're brash or they're arrogant. I'm having a hard time with media and social media, and not necessarily, I have a hard time with the volume of people like the volume and how much they use it. That's a problem. But when people just give you the truth or say what they feel or try to use it in order to relay what they feel is again the truth, I have an impossible time criticizing them.
Don't put too much into it. It's just opinions.
You're probably right. It is a fake world.
It really is. It really is. But everybody just gets an opportunity to say what's on their mind. Most people don't think before they talk. Hello. But it's kind of what this show is. But you think, I don't. I just talk about my feelings.
But Chase Claypool, to me, this is going to come out wrong probably. The more that some people root against him, the more that I root for him.
I think isn't that a natural? I do that with pretty much anything. Yeah. I like an underdog. I really do.
I was on the fence about him. I'm thinking, okay, he falls down too much. He gave up on some 50-50 balls. He really didn't have the season last year that he wanted. That's all water under the bridge. The more that people are over the top critical and seemingly critical just to be critical because their buddy is or because they heard it somewhere on the internet, the more I say, gosh, I hope this kid overcomes.
So do you get that defensive about Matt Canada?
No, because he is a leader of men. He's not somebody who is an underdog. He's in a position where he's supposed to guide other people. And I think that all criticism of him is fair because he's a superior.
Right. Okay.
Which is different.
Okay. Yeah, he's right. Okay. So I get that. And so I'm going to go back just a minute and tell you more about why I love this team and its chances.
Tell me.
I think again, I've always said division winner. The defense, I think, is just loaded. I think it's loaded. I love their coaches. I love their personnel. I love Miles Jack. Is it possible that Miles Jack could be a hitter of anger, like a Jack Lambert kind of
Like a
hitter?
Vince Williams, like a
Yeah,
guy like that.
or a Jack Lambert? Could he be a Jack
Yes,
Lambert?
he could, but I wonder if such a great question. Is football played now outside the hash mark so much that you have so few chances to kind of really do that? And the guys dial it back because they're afraid of being penalized so much that we don't see hitters like that anymore. And that
Well,
it's
that's the better question, actually. That's a great
yeah.
question. That really is a great question. Do they dial it back because of? Do you really? I don't think there's a switch that you can dial back at that when you have that animal instinct. And I think it takes that animal instinct on the football field. I really do.
I
And
think guys have to think too much when they play football now, and they don't just react. And I think it's very unfair to them.
it's a good point. That really is a good point. James Harrison would agree with you, by the way.
And
You,
especially when they get anywhere near a quarterback, Richard.
yeah. I mean, and so okay, I get the near the quarterback thing. I get that. But I mean, the Dick Butkus hits, the Jack Lambert hits, the Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis was the nastiest guy I've ever seen on the football field,
Right?
and I say that in a complimentary way. But boy, that guy put on the helmet and he was ready to fight.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and that's what it takes, I think. So does Miles Jack have that Ray Lewis? And that's a better question. Does he have that Ray Lewis instinct in him?
I think he probably does. I think Miles Jack has to come to a determination. This is one thing that I've really thought about with the Miles Jack situation. How much time does he spend trying to help Devin Bush along? And how much time does he spend shedding all of that, learning the defense, and just doing his thing and saying, I'm here to kind of help myself, not act as a mercenary, but I can't spend a whole lot of time trying to help him along. I got to worry about myself because he is going to have to strike a balance with those two things.
Okay, so I don't know. I think that's more on the coaching side of the question. I think that the way our coaching staff addresses it, especially since we have Brian Flores as our assistant linebackers coach, I would personally, if I were to put myself in that position, I'm not helping anybody. I'm going. My job is to help the team, and I'm not here to help anybody. This isn't kids. We're not playing with kids here, right? And so that's my job. My job is to help the team. I can't help the team by trying to motivate or inspire somebody else to do their job. I mean, I can give you some pointers because I can't play every down. So I could probably give you some pointers, tell you how I'd do it, what I'd do different. But man, at the end of the day, this is my job. I'm walking in there thinking that's my job. Devin, see you later. That would be with any position, by the way. I would never sit on the bench, not for a minute.
Which then I'm glad you answered it like that, because then I wonder if you have essentially four receivers, Johnson, Claypool, and the two guys they drafted. This dynamic to me, there's so many other stories that there's been, because there's been the quarterback story, because there's been Bush, because there's been the offensive line, because there's been the defensive line. The amount of competition in that room is, and this is one that's been passed up. Sure, everybody's looking at them like, yeah, they're going to perform. You got four receivers. The way that those guys are going to compete against each other in practice, to me, is one of the biggest stories that's not being told right now. It's like Wallace and Brown, and back to when they had those guys. It really is going to be like that.
I think you're right. I think you walk in day one, because we're back in Latrobe for the first time in 2 years. I think all of that comes back. I really do agree with you. I think it's going to be a very exciting year, starting with training camp. I think all of those stories are real. And I think that I don't know about those two receivers.
I think the receivers are going to be
NFL.
I think it's going to be cutthroat in that receivers room. Deontay Johnson's fighting for his economic life in the NFL. Yeah. Chase Claypool is fighting to get a second contract. two young receivers are fighting to stay in the league and prove that they deserve to be drafted where they are.
Yep.
Nobody truly is in a position of power with this organization. Everybody's trying to get somewhere.
Do we have any veteran backup receivers?
No, that's the other thing. There's nobody like a DHB was here, or someone like that, a Darius Hayward Bay, or someone that brought them along, or even there'd been a million different backup 38-year-old receivers. There's no one like that.
We don't have that.
No, even the tight end is young, and Fryermuth and Gentry, both of those guys. So there's nobody that even is.
But we have Hayward.
But the offense and the defense might as well be 7 miles apart in camp because they don't really even interact.
No, I mean Hayward isn't Cam Hayward's brother.
Oh, yeah, but he's a young kid.
Yeah, but he's a tight end or something.
He's a tight end, right? They're all young. This to me is the story of camp. How, and by nature, receivers are divas and singularly focused on me. This is going to be an unbelievable competition where they don't have to worry about fighting with the D-backs. These guys are going to be at each other to be the best, and they're going to make all each other better by that.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I really think this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to be a memorable year. And, I mean, you could prove me wrong in the first 5 games, but I really think it's going to be a great year. I really do.
Can I ask you about something? Because you're like me. You love the communal spirit, and you love everything about games and people getting together and having fun. I don't want to call you old, but you've gone to games for a long time.
This white hair didn't come from youth.
Do you think that in all of sports that we've gotten too impolite and the crowds are a bit much, and we go and we're out for blood too much at crowds, or it just is a parallel to our society? Like what I'm getting at is every time you go on the internet or on social media, you see 2 guys duking it out in the seats, or you see swearing, or is it just that there's cameras everywhere now?
I think that there are cameras everywhere, but I also think it is a reflection of where our society is going. It's a sad reflection. I saw the Tampa guy in Madison Square Garden get decked. You saw that. I think that was atrocious. That guy got sucker punched. I think that was.
I mean, that's jail time stuff. To me.
I hope so. Frankly, somebody should beat the crap out of the guy and then throw him in jail and give him a taste of his own medicine. That was horrible. That could have killed the guy. I mean, I thought he was. I mean, truly. So yes, that was bad. I think yes, and I do think it's unruly. I think Steelers fans are unruly. I don't know. I do think it's a reflection of that, the society. I think alcohol exacerbates the problem. You're selling all this beer at these games, and people just get so trashed. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of that.
I don't. The thing about it, people so quickly blame alcohol, and they're right. But millions upon millions upon millions of Americans, my friends and myself being some of them, we can go and have a beer singular and have a good time.
Right.
And so it's a mixture of idiocy and alcohol put together, and testosterone and all of that.
Idiocy and alcohol. What a great combination.
When you put them together, you're like this too. You don't like to offer a problem unless you have a solution. I know how you're wired. You don't just like to fire off a bunch of problems.
I don't want that. Don't bring me a problem without a solution.
Correct. Bring a solution. I keep searching for solutions in all of this, and I just don't know what they are. I don't know how people, because here's the other thing I wonder. Let's say you deck that guy, or let's say that you yell and scream and you're caught on camera. How do you just show up at work the next morning like nothing happened? How do you comport yourself and go about your business like it's no big deal in life?
Yeah, I don't know.
There's no embarrassment.
I think there's so much, this conversation can go so many different ways. And I do think it's societal, and I think that culturally, so many frustrations for everybody right now. I think the pandemic created some real mental health issues. And, when you say mental health, that's not a bad word. I mean, that's actually, I think each of us have some pathology that, we could use help with. But it's just I do. I think it's a sad statement to say that. Wouldn't it be wonderful just to be able to go to a game and not have to worry about somebody hitting you or just it's just wrong. It shouldn't happen.
Like I went to a baseball game last week, and there's a couple guys in the back swearing, and I'm thinking like,
did you have your kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. So doesn't that bother you?
It does, but it also doesn't pay for any vigilantism to stand up and say, hey, calm it down, because it just feels like then somebody will victimize themselves, or you'll try. They're looking for an entanglement. And I just, and nobody else nobody wants to be the Good Samaritan anymore because it doesn't pay off.
Well, I'm not saying this for any other reason than the reality is, and it gets me in trouble all the time. I would say something.
Yeah, it was far enough away that it was on the fringes. Like if it was the
Especially
row
with your
behind
kids.
me,
Especially
right.
with your kids. It's just total disrespect.
It's just a weird, and that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because you're somebody that is on my wavelength in a lot of things, and I just wonder how we don't police ourselves enough at games.
Boy,
How we don't.
That's a great question. That's really a great question, and I hope you pose that on your radio show too.
Yeah,
I mean that's really a great question. Self-police us. Let's call for that. Let's call for some decorum throughout in how we conduct ourselves, and respect people and respect each other, respect the younger children. It's about respect.
yeah, because we're getting back out there. This football season is full house, and baseball's back, and Latrobe is back, and all of that. It's not that hard.
There's such an opportunity for positivity. So it's so great. Now, one of your radio guys at Odyssey is that you're with is Jamal Woodson. Do you know Jamal?
Yeah.
So Jamal, if you've ever called Jamal, and Jamal, I love you. If you ever called Jamal and you listen to his voicemail, it's positive thoughts only is what he says on it. Positivity, positive thoughts only, and I just love that, because that really is who he is. And I think if you can start that and allow it to continue to ignite and just grow, that's a good way to do it, one at a time.
I agree. All right, last
well, listen,
thing.
You're wonderful.
You are too.
I won't take up any more of your time. Let's see, Matt Canada, you're on the hot seat, bud.
That's your guy. Richard, okay. Thank you.
Let's get him on the air. Have you had him?
No, he doesn't do a lot of interviews.
Let's get him on.
I'll try. Let's see what we can do.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Richard.